We're glad to have you back. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act 2008 expressly prohibits any price fixing or agreement among undertakings, whether bilaterally or multilaterally, or by undertakings acting in consensus on the platform or under the aegis of an association to fix prices, coordinate supply, or any other commercially sensitive factors that can limit or substantially prevent competition or otherwise distort the market. In compliance with this act, the Commission is investigating anti-competitive practices across the country. Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Mr. Babatunde Irukera, is with me live on the show from our Abuja studios to talk about how more to protect the rights of consumers. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. It's good to see you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good to see you too.
Yes. First, I want us to start with the issues around price fixing. What's really the impact of this on the entire market?
Oh, I mean, it distorts the market completely. There's no fair price in the market except the price that a buyer and a seller negotiates in a free market. A free market, a robust and optimized market means there's competition both ways. Sellers are competing for the business of the buyers, and buyers are also competing to buy from particular sellers. Why would buyers compete to buy from a particular seller? One, that seller offers probably better prices, innovation, more products, or certain attributes of the service or product that makes them preferable to the other seller. And so sellers too, on the other hand, must be struggling to get the attention of the buyer. When you don't have that, then the market is not really fair. And one of the biggest elements to eliminate that is a coordinated approach to pricing. If sellers can come together, whether bilaterally, individually, on the platform of an association or anything, to decide that, you know what, here's what the price should be, then there's really nothing. There's no difference between the sellers. There's really no motivation to pick one seller over the other. And there's no motivation for any seller to offer their best. There's no motivation for them to be innovative. There's no reason to hold a promotion. There's no reason for them to save cost. There's no reason for them to be more efficient. And so that's what price fixing does. It completely distorts the market and it damages everything.
Now, there's been this back and forth with the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents of Nigeria with regards to fixing prices around POS transactions. Let me allow you shed more light on this, and where are we with regards to this issue?
Well, so the Commission became aware from credible, open, and other sources that a meeting of the association occurred at an event. And one of the discussions, in fact, resolutions, was that they were going to be changing their prices and across a range of services, and literally identified exactly what the figure is for each service and the different band of services. Now, that's the textbook price fixing. And you have an association that must be made up of thousands of operators. Each of those operators, their input costs are different. Some of them have just an umbrella outside their home in far-flung Yobe or Borno or Bayelsa. Some of them operate out of a top office in Victoria Island in Lagos or Maitama in Abuja. So their real costs, some of them have just a single employee, some have 4 or 5. And so their input costs are different. Their expected margins or the models for their business and their perceived successes are very different. And so each person should be able to price their product or their service based on what that expectation is. And so to say that you fix the prices across the board obviously makes that difficult. And so what we did was to say, no, you can't do that. I mean, we're not discussing whether you can, a service provider can fix the price for their services or not. That's not the question. The question is that you cannot coordinate that. You cannot come together and say that let everybody sell at whatever price they find comfortable for them. And so we said you cannot do that. And Usually, because, I mean, in an association like that, where you have a lot of small business enterprises, some of the most vulnerable people in society and trying to get by. And so the approach to that is not just to just stand and start whacking people on their backs or strong enforcement. They're not large companies. They're not sophisticated enough for you to expect that they know that what they're potentially doing is a violation of law. So we engaged. And we started out using advocacy, saying, well, here's what the problem associated with this is, and so you cannot do it. But it seemed that the response was more some kind of adamance and insistence that we will do it anyway. You can tell us what to do or what not to do. And so we had to respond to that, saying, you know, this is an important segment of the market, and this is an important principle of the market, and this is an important time for the country. The current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made some sweeping policy changes and are working at trying to make these policies work as best as it can for the country. And one of the places where people feel that the most is immediately in their pocketbooks. And so between the potential difficulties associated with policies and the add-ons that occur based on malfeasance or violation of the law, the crunch becomes really heavy on citizens. And so we as regulators must unlock that part of the law, because there's no benefit to that. And when you have a good policy, if it comes with some level of hardship, we can understand that the hardship would be transitional for a period of time while the real benefits of the policy ultimately kicks in. But when you have add-ons like price fixing, there's no interim benefit to the larger society except the participants in the enterprise. And so we discouraged it. We actually prohibited it, tell them they couldn't do it. But when their response was an insistence, so we engaged, we escalated the regulatory process by entering an order against the association, specifically against individual members of the executive council of the association, and also issued out another advisory to members of the association, advising them about their obligations under the order, including the fact that the order has been served on your association. It means it has been served on you as a member of the association. And the order was a cease and desist. It still wasn't an order violating conduct yet. It was a cease and desist that you were prohibited from doing this. And also, if you do this, these are the provisions of the law that you'll be violating. And in addition, now that this has been escalated to the issuance of an order, and you violate an order of the commission, it comes with its own penalties. If it's an individual, it can be up to ₦1 million in penalties or up to 3 months in jail. And if it's a business entity, depending on the extent, the amount of time involved, it could be ₦10 million. And so that's what we did. We entered that order and also issued an additional advisory simultaneously to make sure that people understand that this is wrong. And if they do it, the regulator has both the desire and the will to enforce the law. We do not want to pressure vulnerable people more. But enforcement of the law is not negotiable. And you can't allow the vulnerable people to victimize or exploit other vulnerable people. We've monitored what we think is a response, and what we've seen is that the president of the association has dialed back and said that, well, they didn't intend to fix prices, and they haven't fixed prices, and that what they were doing was some kind of a guideline to maximum charges. It remains to be seen what that really is. But to the extent that they admit that they have no intention to fix prices and they're not fixing prices, I'd say from the regulatory standpoint, we're satisfied.
Exactly. I wanted to take it up from there because the association is saying that they are not fixing prices. And some will say, have FCPC considered maybe their internal mechanism, and considering some challenges, there's hike on almost everything now. And you know, this started from the cash scarcity when there was no cash, and the POS operators and all of these mobile operators became, in quote, kings, like everyone would say. So some would say maybe they also are contending with the reality on ground. What would be your reaction to this?
So increasing the prices of products or services based on realistic changes in input cost is legitimate. It is legitimate. And so that's not the question. The FCCPC is not, in this instance, engaging in price regulation or price control. What we're doing is market regulation. And so people are entitled to determine their prices. And I'm pretty certain that if you leave people to determine their prices, some people would say that the current existing price is sufficient for them. Some people will increase their prices by 5, 10%. You might find some people who believe that to continue their business in a profitable manner, they need to increase prices by 50%. I don't know. And so there are provisions in the law that prohibit excessive, exploitative, or manifestly unjust pricing. And so those provisions in the law would kick in when people raise price in an exploitative manner. But that's not what this is about. What we're saying is let everybody determine their price. And so it's not about whether the economic realities justify a price increase. It's whether it's a violation of law, whether it's fair to consumers, whether it's even a sustainable mechanism for business development to, as an association or as a group, uniformly decide price.
All right. So let's take a break for a minute, a commercial break. We'll come back to continue this discussion. I'll be back with... all right, thank you for staying with us. I still have the Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission with me to continue this discussion. Now, I want to ask that what more are you doing at the FCPC with regards to advocacy, less of enforcement on some of these issues, and how has it been? How receptive are Nigerians to all of these moves?
I suppose the example that we've just addressed with respect to POS operators is an example of how the advocacy and escalation into enforcement can work. Recently, we also engaged in similar advocacy around food prices. Again, just like I said earlier on, there are several inputs into what is causing a rise in food prices. There's a war in Russia and Ukraine. There's monetary policy. There's climate change, security issues. There are other policy issues, seed issues, all kinds of things. But even at that, prices of food rose generally post-COVID. But in some places it's going down, other places it's going up. Nigeria is one of the places where it's going up. And it's going up at an alarming rate. And so what we need to do is to do a work to at least unlock the pieces that makes the prices go up based on illegality. And so we're saying that trade associations generally, whether it's at the market level or the middleman level, whether it's at the distribution level, or even at the farmers level, or even at the fertilizer suppliers level, the seedling suppliers level, if there is any coordinated conduct that is affecting pricing, that makes pricing not something that is determined in the best possible market operation, we must unlock that. And so we're engaging on that, getting a lot of pushback, but getting pushback from members of our association is okay. It's also an indication of the fact that the advocacy is getting to the right place, and the question that we're trying to determine is becoming a controversy and is being discussed, which is good, because it is in the place of that discussion that ultimately what is absolutely right and acceptable comes out. So I'd say our advocacy is working. We're scaling it up. We're scaling advocacy up particularly with respect to the informal market, the informal sector of the economy, because a lot of the people there are small businesses and sometimes relatively uninformed. We've been doing advocacy work for years. We've met with trade and professional associations in the past, but I suppose advocacy is never enough. And so what we're doing is trying to approach regulation from a proportionality and a prudential manner, which is not going straight to enforcement, and especially the small businesses, starting with advocacy, engaging, and seeing if you can modify people's behavior by that engagement. And many times it works. And then for the limited few who would not modify their behavior on account of the engagement, we would reserve the enforcement tools for those ones, and we'll enforce.
Before I let you go, at what point really does the FCCPC take to enforce after all of this moves? And what will be your message to both the mobile operators and others in the entire market at this time?
Operators, for one, and all the people who operate POSs is that you're a critical part of the economy. You're an important part of the value chain, whether it's the financial inclusion value chain or even the commerce value chain. In a manner of speaking, you're a payment system of your own. And so you're critical, you're important, and nobody should discount your role. However, there's a framework and there are laws. We believe that you should be able to do your business profitably, but you must also do it legally. Now, doing your business legally is not mutually exclusive with doing it profitably. Because at the end of the day, even these POS operators are consumers themselves. They are victims on the other side when we allow others to fix prices. And so proceed with doing your business, charging a fair price, and getting a reasonable recompense for your time, your work, your effort, and your investment. When that is the case and that is happening, you can be sure that you would not have any concerns with respect to regulatory intervention. And I'll say the same thing, not just to mobile money or POS operators. I'll say the same thing to businesses, especially small-scale businesses, whether they're the bakers, the table water associations, the barbers associations, the vulcanizers associations. These are structures of the market that have existed for many years. And we understand that this is the way that business has been done before we had a more robust competition market regulation. But we must all move to the fact that the better market regulation is for prices to be set freely, not fixed. And so what I would say is everybody is important, but everybody must obey the law. Thank you.
All right, there. I must thank you so much for your time, Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Competition Consumer Protection Commission, Mr. Babatunde Irukera, for your time on the show. We really appreciate this, and thank you so much for making sense of the topic of discourse. All right, it's time to look at figures from the Nigerian Exchange Limited. And to speak further around this, Mr. Dele Sanusi, who is the CEO of GDL Stockbrokers Limited, Managing Director. He joins me via phone to talk more around this. The market is down today. Mr. Sanusi, what is happening? The market is on the other side today.
Yes, thank you, Tolu. If we look at the market today, it turns around and it went down by 0.4%. I mean, that is all share index, and the stocks that are involved is the Cadbury, the likelihood of Cadbury, Unilever, NGS, First Bank, Access, MTN, and so forth. So the market went down today. So what we can really see that what really caused that is that number one, we can see that it's a profit taking, and but for the consumer group, you see that they have started to release their results like Cadbury and Unilever, and the result is not really, it's not really, it went, I mean, their profit, they are unable to, I mean, to send profit, they make a loss because of the FX. So it really impacted their figure. So as a result of that, they recorded loss they recorded loss, and it really affected the price because any information that you send to the stock market, to the floor, the information we need to factor into the price of the stock market. So that's why you see some of them coming down.
The likes of Seplat playing so big in the market as of yesterday is also still in the gainers list for today. But what is happening with that stock? And we have Cadbury in the losers list for today.
Yes, if you look at Seplat, if you look at the Seplat itself has not really moved. Some of the stocks, they have moved about 50%, some of them have moved about 70% year to date. But if you look at Seplat has not really moved. Not only that one, apart from that, he has not moved. The issue of this deregulation is going to really, affect settlers positively. So that's why you will see that at that price, investors, they still find it comfortable to invest in it, because when the result comes out, it's going to, the issue of the deregulation is going to really affect the result positively. So that's what is really causing settlers to move up.
Amos, thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day, Mr. Sanusi.